That sounds fun. That sounds fun.
Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of That Sounds Fun, The Seasons. I'm your host, Annie F. Downs, and I'm so happy to be here with you today, where we are going to answer the question, where is the hope of winter? Before we dive into today's conversation, though, I want to tell you about one of our incredible sponsors. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Relationships of all kinds are complicated on their own, amen, and grief and loss add even more complex layers to all of that. The reality is we often need a place to process with a neutral party, someone who's a safe place to vent, but also a person who will help us keep moving forward towards health. For me, that has been my counselor. If you've been thinking about counseling but are nervous to give it a try, BetterHelp really is a great, safe option to get started. It's done fully online, so it makes therapy affordable and convenient. Plus, you get access to a diverse network of more than 30,000 credentialed therapists with a wide range of specialties, and you can easily switch therapists anytime at no extra cost. Navigate your relationships with the support of BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/thatsoundsfun today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/thatsoundsfun. Today on the show, Mattie Jackson is back. Y'all remember her from episode 345. But if not, you are going to love her. Mattie is an incredible author, speaker, and entrepreneur with a heart for helping others find hope in the midst of life's hardest seasons. Mattie so generously offers her wisdom and story as a friend who's experienced tremendous grief after suddenly losing her husband at the age of 28. You may remember we talked about her book when it came out that she wrote about that. Her latest book, Through the Valley of Grief, is a 365-day devotional of spiritual practices for hope and suffering. And as we talk about trying to find hope when it feels like winter will never end, the week after the release of Where Did TJ Go?, my own story of our family suffering such great loss and such grief, this devotional was really interesting to me. As soon as it came across my desk, I said, can we talk to Mattie in the winter of 2025? Can we talk to her right after the TJ book releases? Her heart and her work I just think you have going to really enjoy learning from her today. And the setup of this devotional is fascinating. It's really fascinating. You're going to love when we talk about it. If you're taking notes in your TSF Seasons Guidebook, we are on page 21, my favorite number. If you're wanting a copy of the guidebook, if you haven't gotten that yet, you're never too late. Just go ahead and grab it today. Jump in with us. You can find that at anniefdowns.com/seasons. So here is my conversation as we continue to talk about the winter and where is the hope in winter with my friend, Mattie Jackson.
That sounds fun.
Okay, you're back. I'm so glad
back.
you're back.
I'm always happy to be here. Somehow
Thank
we're
you.
always talking about hard things, but we're always smiling at each other.
That's exactly right.
Whatever.
Okay, so you were last on the show in 21.
Mm-hmm.
Were you even married yet? No.
No.
Had you met Connor?
Here's the funny thing. We had started dating like legitimately 2 weeks before my first book came out. So
wow,
it was brand spanking new. We're talking
Yeah.
like 3 dates.
Yeah.
Like I'm still like, do
How'd
I
y'all
wait
meet?
30 minutes before I text back? Like
Yeah,
that's where
right.
we are.
That's right.
And I'm on a book tour promoting my marriage and my husband and the whole thing.
Right.
So he is one of my best friends from college, brother-in-law. So I
That's
knew
right.
him. It was
Yeah.
a very like acquaintance sort of thing. And we knew each other. And when I started feeling like I was ready to date again, kind of started joke. He was dating someone else for several years, which I just, by proximity knew about.
Right.
And, saw him at my friends' kids' parties and all the things.
Sure.
Very attractive.
With like his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Sure.
Very attractive, very my type, very 7, golden retriever,
Yeah.
just drawn straight to it,
Yeah.
you know. And so when I started dating again, I joked with Emily all the time, like as soon as Connor breaks up with fill in the blank, like you got to set me up.
Uh-huh.
And he did. And then many months down the road, she was like, is this a joke or is this real? And I was like, I mean, I don't know. And she was like, well, your dad's playing. He played a show here that October 21. And he was like, she was like, why don't I bring him with us? And you can just see. And so I joke now that he was served to me on a silver platter and he had no idea. So that's basically what happened. And honestly didn't go into it with anything more than like, he's the fun guy. Like he's the that sounds fun guy. And let's go to dinner and like nothing else is going to happen. And it was just gold from
Yeah.
there. So he was so much more than that, and it's been amazing. So
I
he's
have one
been
of
with
those
me
in
on
my
this
back
whole book
pocket.
ride.
I have a mutual friend. I'm always like, if that guy breaks
Yeah.
up with his girlfriend,
Yeah.
I don't care if I'm dating somebody or not. Like,
Yeah.
if he breaks up with his girlfriend, call me and let me make a choice.
Hey, timing.
Every time my buddy calls me, I answer, say, "Is he single?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, I have to actually talk to you about something." I'm like, "Well, I only want you to
Let me
call.
tell you, hang
Other
on
than
to
that,
it.
text.
Hang
I
on
only
to
want
it.
you to call." Okay, so I think this is really important because we are crossing over. We're in the back half of winter. We are coming towards spring. We're just a couple weeks from spring, but winter has felt long. And when you were here with us last time, you were telling the story of your first book and of the loss of your first husband. And there was a long winter. It isn't like you were like, my husband is gone. Now I should write a book, and now I have the next husband. Yay. I mean, it isn't like that, right?
No, not at all. Winter, listen, I don't know if your winter is 6 weeks or 6 months, or in my case, at this point, 6.5 years. Winter's long. And the end point that you want, even if you arrive, always feels longer than it maybe even was.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the nature of winter, right? Like, it's slow, it's cold. You can't do the things that you normally enjoy doing, and that's hard. Like, the waiting of winter is hard, even if the circumstances of winter aren't as hard. You know what I mean?
Yes. Sometimes like, even this morning, I got up and I asked my Alexa. I sometimes I'm hesitant to say her name because I don't want
My
to
roommate
set off
Alexa.
everyone's Alexa. Yeah, but I asked her the temperature, and when she said 33, I was like, no, I didn't want to wear a coat. I mean, I told you before we started, I'm getting some DMs of people being like, I'm tired of this series. I'm like, yeah, guess what? Welcome to winter.
Are we there yet?
Yeah. That is real. So, I mean, will you talk for just a second? You're on the other side in some ways, not in many ways, of losing someone so dear to you. But God has answered some of your prayers.
Oh, yeah.
You're married to Connor. Y'all have a son now. And so if you went back and talked to Mattie in the middle of the grief, in the middle of the winter, when you had no idea you had no idea God would ever answer any prayer for you to ever be married again or ever have a child or anything. What would you say to her? Would you tell her to do anything different?
Some days I would have done things different. But I think the biggest thing, and this is, I think, a huge topic of our conversation today, and I don't mean to jump to it, but I think I would just tell her, like, never quit hoping. I mean, truly, like, whatever that looks like on whatever day, you have one of my big sort of statements that I think I keep coming back to in the last several years of working with widow groups and, my podcast and the book, everything that I get to do professionally and personally with people who grieve.
Yes.
Is that you have a little bit of agency, and you have agency to hope. And so I think, to me, I would tell myself, like, whatever you have to do every single day to act in a hopeful way, or believe something hopeful, or have somebody else speak over you hope when you don't believe it at all.
Yeah.
Like, do that, because the outcome of what you're hoping for isn't guaranteed, right? And as you just spoke to, in my case, some of those things were quite literally answered, as yes prayers, but some of them weren't.
Yes.
And so don't get fixated on the outcome, but never stop hoping, because that's what sustains you, as you wait, is just the energy of, this could be true because God is the God of hope, and he will answer in his way. So hope is coming, even if you don't know what it looks like. So just like, never stop actively hoping.
You're saying a really important thing to me that I hope our friends we have a guidebook that they can take notes in, and I hope they're taking notes today of this, where you said, do whatever you have to do today.
Yeah.
That's for the first time in my whole Bible reading life, I have only committed to read today. But I'm going to read the whole year. That's my long-term goal, is to read the whole Bible this year. But I only have to read February 24th today.
Yeah.
And so you're giving me this other, like, oh yeah, I actually only have to hope today. And then I can get up tomorrow and do it. I don't have to have this like extended, like, I'll get out of winter, the seasonal change. It is like, okay, what does today need as far as my hope goes?
Yeah.
What does that look like? Talk some more about that. That is new to me.
Yeah. Well, it's so important that you bring that up in that winter. I mean, every season happens one day at a time. That's a stupid statement. But
that is like a quote. Every season happens one day at a time.
Does.
It's so good.
It does. And I mean, I think we sort of beat to death the idea of presence, right? And it's easy in spring and summer and fall. And it's like, ooh, I want to be present for everything I'm harvesting. And like, let me tell you, nobody wants to be present in winter. They want the plan. They want to fast forward. They want to skip from November to March. And it's just not the way it works. But I think the freedom of winter happening one day at a time is that what I feel like I've beaten all my people over the head with is that God only asks for 24 hours at a time. Like Lamentations, his mercies are new every single morning. And for whatever reason, at least in the Western world, our every single morning happens every 24 hours.
Yeah.
And so no matter where you are, and what I would tell myself then is like, you will survive this 24 hours, right? Like you will survive February 24th. And it may be a mess at the end and your tank may be on empty and you may feel like you literally can't do another 24-hour block, but you can. And that to me felt like freedom because I am such a forward thinker and I am such a fixer. And like, I think the way I used to hope was, here, God, here's my plan. Will you sign off on it? And like, give me peace in the meantime.
Yeah.
But that's not how it works. It's just, Lord, give me the energy, give me the capacity to trust you today and know that everything else is in your hands. And like, I only have to carry, I don't even have to carry today. I just have to tell you to carry today.
Yes.
And like 24 hours you can do. You really can.
How, after your first husband died, when you were, I mean, you talk about this in this new devotional, Through the Valley of Grief, about cleaning out his closet and doing all these kind of things. Were there a lot of days where you thought, I don't know that I can do today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And those are, I will say this, those are the days that God will show up in ways that are miracles, like miracles as big as parting the Red Sea miracles. And they're miracles that nobody else will see. Like those are the days that your people show up and you don't expect them to. Or they're days that you get the song on the playlist that only me and him knew about, you know, and it breaks you, but it also, it pours into you the gumption to keep going. Like, I just don't know how to describe it. It's just those days you need to call in every person that you have. And every thing that you need, I did. I can't speak to everybody.
No, I think you should.
You may not. You may need to go it solo. But a huge part of the devotional, which I'm sure we'll talk about, there's like 4 really practical rhythms that I work throughout the whole book because I am a very practical person and a do-it person. And you know, just like any devotional, the purpose and goal, you know, is kind of threefold really. It's for me to meet you, so that you know you're not alone, that you know you can get to spring in your winter and to hear that voice. It's to ultimately draw you back to the God who will carry you through winter, through the valley, whatever metaphor. And then it's to equip you in practical ways with practical rhythms that when I looked back, the days I did these things are the days that I could pack up the closet.
Yeah.
You know, and the days I didn't were the days I crashed. And so if I had somebody say, man, like, just practice these things in small ways with God every day.
How did you find these 4 things? Wail, connect, worship, hope. How did you like literally look through your journals?
Yes. I look back. Honestly, when I finished the first round of the manuscript, they weren't in there. It was just
365
entries because I started writing those, Annie, like 5 years ago, maybe. Like I just started writing them to myself. Like this is what God is telling me this morning. And
it's in the middle of it.
Dude, and so then, Mattie, you know, when we started working on it really actively, expanded it to 365. And then going back, I just thought, yes, we need the spiritual. Like we need to land here in our morning, in our bedtime, on our lunch break when we're having a meltdown in our closet in our office and we read this. We need to meet God here, but like I'm a spiritual person, but I'm also practical. Like what do we do, man? Like what do I do besides read this? And so to me, when I read back through them as a whole, I was like, this is the heartbeat of it. Like these are the things that I actually practiced, you know, and then got in a habit of practicing almost unknowingly that helped me heal and like helped me survive. And so if you can kind of pass that on and people don't have to stumble upon it, in retrospect, then like incredible. Like I hope it takes,
One of the things that blew my mind when I read through this devotional is wail, connect, worship, and hope. You didn't do, okay, here's a set of wail. Here's a set of connect. And in my experience of grief, particularly the one that is most up close currently is the loss of my nephew, TJ. When I've experienced grief, it has felt as messy as, like, it isn't even like you went, wail, connect, worship, hope, wail, connect, worship. It's like worship, connect, worship, hope, wail, hope, connect, worship. I mean, like, it is, you did not do this in an order. This feels as messy as grief is, of like, well, okay, now we finished our wailing, so now we worship.
Yeah.
You didn't do that. That has set me free a little bit in my grief, to go like, it's not up and to the right.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm at this place today. Tomorrow I'll be a little bit better, and then a little bit better, and a little bit better. And then there's a big crash, but then I'm a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. It hasn't even been like that. It's been like waves.
Yeah.
And so talk about that. How messy has this been?
I mean, I'm glad you point that out. We of course, labored through all the ways to format it and this and that. And I think it ultimately came back to just the erratic, unpredictable nature of grief that you're speaking to. And it isn't orderly, and it isn't easy, and it isn't finished. Even if you look at my life almost 7 years later, and it's like, I have this incredible family, and for all intents and purposes, the big things on paper have been redeemed, right? But there's still this pang of, I wish he could see it. Like, people have asked me, just promoting this book, like, how has this impacted your grieving been in your life together? And it's like, obviously this is a season of celebration, like personally in every way. But I think there will always be, Annie, of every big thing in my life that we dreamed of together. Like, he was the champion who was like, you're going to be a writer, before any of this ever happened. And like, you'll be the best mom, and just all this stuff. And it's like, I don't even grieve him being here as my husband. I grieve him being here as one of the best friends I've ever had, to see this stuff that's real.
Yes.
And that hurts. Like, when we had my son, I sat out during one of his first naps and cried and just told Ben about it, because like, I hope he can see it. I believe, based on
Great cloud of
God's
witnesses.
goodness and
That's
some
right.
scripture that he can. But anyway, all that to say, grief is messy even when it looks like it's cleaned up.
Yes.
And so, especially when you're in the throes of it, there's just, your nerves for every human emotion are so frayed and so raw that you don't know what kind of day you're going to get. And so I think, for me, it was important that people are met wherever they are on whatever day. And I think it was also important for people to be reminded, if you're on an up and to the right day or week, don't forget to sit down and really release your pain. Don't forget to wail. Or like, if you're feeling like you've been in the depths for a few weeks, like, I know you don't feel like you trust God right now, but don't forget to worship, So I think it's just the combination of learning these rhythms, is just the word I use over and over again, are the most obedient and the most life-giving ways to navigate grief and just feel the waves,
I think it's such a gift for you to talk about Ben as your friend too.
Yeah.
To be like, of course, if any of us lost one of our best friends, we go, I wish my best friend was seeing this.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I'm never going to have a friend again.
Yeah.
It just means I wish my best friend was seeing this life that God has given me after they left Earth. How has your understanding of heaven changed knowing Ben's there? Or has it?
Oh, totally. It feels closer than it ever has. Everyone, I feel like, kind of says that if you lose someone close or you have a near-death experience, like, just like the veil is so thin.
Yeah.
And I think it's so much more at the center of my thought life now, because I needed it to be for so long.
Yes.
And I think, in all honesty, I've deep water. I've never been I'm afraid of death person, but I think now it just it informs all the rest of my reality in a
Yes.
way that is not churchy, Annie. Like, I really don't mean that. Like,
Yeah,
I still
no.
get pissed off in traffic.
Yeah.
Like, I still
I don't hear you saying you've stopped sinning.
Yeah, like I pray for my son and my husband's safety the second I wake up every morning, and I will till the day I die, because that is my biggest fear still.
Of course.
But like, the reality is that's where we're going. I mean, it
And we have way less control than we think.
everything, and in a freeing way, not in a I'm chained, my hands are chained kind of way.
Yes.
But in a way of like, there's nothing I can do to mess up my happy ending and all the people I love's happy ending.
Yes.
Right?
I'm not sure I've said this on the show, but I've said this on another interview talking about the TJ book. Is one of my things I'm working on with my counselor is I don't take my nephew Sam in my car by myself, because I'm like, there is no world where I'm going to be responsible for another kid in our family, by themselves. Any of my cousins, we have a bunch of little, between 5 and infant, we have like 8 of them or something. I don't take any of them anywhere by themselves. And I hope I will at some point, but that's not my reality yet, because I'm like, I'm not in control.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I kind of had this moment when TJ died where I was like, kids die. Oh, right. Like, oh, right. And so that carries with me a little bit too. So it feels like even to overemphasize our metaphor, even in the summer, I can feel cold for a minute a day, where it just feels like this wintry moment of like, oh yeah, this will affect me forever. And heaven is closer than it's ever been. You're just like, oh yeah, my grandparents. Oh yeah, TJ's there. Oh yeah, Ben's there. Like it's just such a different, it just made heaven come alive to me in some ways.
I agree completely.
Yeah, which is wild because people died before Ben and TJ.
For sure.
But it didn't do to me what this.
Yeah. No, I know.
It wasn't that
I
it
know.
was. Yeah.
That sounds fun.
Hey friends, just interrupting this conversation. Tell you about one of our incredible partners, Daily Look. Okay, there's this green jacket sweater thing and this Nashville sweater that I wore recently in a picture on Instagram, and y'all were asking where it was from. My girl Esmeralda at Daily Look picked it out for me. Listen, I'm telling you, when I got my box, I loved trying everything on because I knew an actual stylist had picked out clothes based on my measurements, my normal style, and my color preferences. The process is really simple. You just go on their site and fill out a style quiz. Y'all know we love a quiz. It's so fun. Tell them what your budget is, and a real person, not AI, styles you. You can try up to 12 premium pieces. It's time to get your own personal stylist with Daily Look. Head to dailylook.com to take your style quiz and use the code ThatSoundsFun for 50% off your first order. Once again, that's dailylook.com for 50% off, and make sure you use our promo code ThatSoundsFun so they know we sent you. One last time, that's dailylook.com, and the promo code is ThatSoundsFun. And another incredible partner I get to tell you about, AG1. Listen, I packed up my AG1 travel packs and brought them with me to New York City because I literally try not to miss a single day. It just makes me feel more energized and clear-headed, and I love that I'm knocking out getting the vitamins and minerals I need by drinking them first thing in the morning. You heard Aaron Moon and I talk about aging recently on That Sounds Fun, and I will say AG1 is one way I'm trying to stay healthy as I get to continue to age. It actually has some key ingredients that focus on giving you a sharp mind, a healthy heart, and vibrant skin. I will take it. So try AG1 for yourself. It's something I've actually been able to stay consistent with, and that's why I've loved partnering with AG1 for so long. AG1 is offering new subscribers a free $76 gift when you sign up. You'll get a welcome kit, a bottle of D3 plus K2, which I am loving, and 5 free travel packs in your first box. So make sure to check out drinkag1.com/soundsfun to get this offer. That's drinkag1.com/soundsfun to start your new year on a healthier note. Okay, now back to our conversation with Mattie.
That sounds fun.
When you think about hope for people who are in the middle of grief or who have blinks of grief or days of grief, where does heaven play into that hope? I mean, it feels churchy to ask, but that has to be part of this for us. It is for me.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think it has to just be like the banner over every other hope, right? Like that's the big finish line hope, right?
Yeah.
And so I think for me, it helped me to know without a shadow of a doubt that the banner of hope heaven that we are all going to is so promised. And if something that gargantuan and unfathomable and joyous beyond comprehension is real, then like why wouldn't every other tiny like lowercase h hope be available to me through that same God? You know what I mean?
That's good. Yeah, that's
so
really good.
I think on the days where I was like, there's nothing. Like this is all dark. Like there's no point. Like what could he possibly redeem or bring joy from today? It's like, no, if heaven for billions of sinners for hundreds of thousands of years is perfectly ready and untarnished, even though we do everything in our power to mess it up.
Yeah.
Like if he delivers on that for real, then he'll deliver on the little tiny one that I need today.
Say that, girl.
Right? I just think it doesn't mitigate the reality. It just makes this reality seem so wonderfully small that like he can heal it, you know? I think that's what it did.
Yeah. The everydayness is so important.
Yeah.
The other thing that stood out to me so much in this Devo that I was like, oh man, this is going to help so much at where we are in the year is the power of connecting with other people. Like, people don't have to be grieving like we're grieving to connect with us well in the middle of it. How did you ask for help? How did you ask for connection? What did people do right they didn't even realize they were doing right for you in the middle?
The connection is so key. And I actually just had someone lately ask, like, what if I want to be alone in my grief? Like, is that bad?
Interesting.
And I said, no, like, this is our instinct. Like, have you ever seen an injured animal? Like,
Right.
it retreats.
Yes.
And there is necessity to silence, and there is necessity to rest, and there is necessity to having your own space in order to know what you're feeling, you know, and process those things. But I think that there is also a big threat when we isolate too much. Like if your aloneness is to isolate and pull away, you are Satan's target. Just call it what it is. If your aloneness is to rest and reset, then the Holy Spirit's there with you. I mean, the Holy Spirit's always with you. But, you know, if you're seeking God in your aloneness, absolutely amen.
Yeah.
If you're running in your aloneness, you're in danger. And so to me, I think that's just sort of a heart check of like, what am I doing here? You know, like, am I meeting with God? Am I having tea and putting on essential oils so I can take a nap? Or am I drinking? Am I turning to somebody for comfort who I know is not going to lead me in the right direction? You know, am I binging TV just to binge, not to like make myself laugh, you know, at a wrong, just like check your heart and don't shame yourself when you do the wrong thing because you're gonna. But if you see your sort of heart posture being that of running instead of resting, then call somebody.
Wow.
Running
instead of resting.
Yeah.
That is really, we've been talking a lot about, I think a lot about the difference between escapism and relief, running versus resting.
Yeah.
And like whales have to come up to the top. Like they have to blow the air out their blowhole. You have to let whales come up to the top, but we cannot take them out of the ocean.
Yeah.
And so let them come up for air, but don't take them out. I was paying attention. One of the things during this book launch has been kind of paying attention to how much you've experienced this too, how much you have to talk about the story can really affect you. And so I was like, no, you guys, I'm like super fine. I'm like, great. 18 interviews today. Fine. And then I noticed over last weekend that I watched an entire season of a show and I listened to all the podcasts that went along with them. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe I should have connected with someone.
Yeah.
Maybe there was another, because I wasn't resting. Resting would have been watching 3 episodes.
Right.
And then seeing somebody. Instead, it was I didn't leave my house.
Right.
And I crushed a TV show and the matching podcast to go along with it.
That's funny.
So what do you do? I mean, talk to our friends who are like, how do I identify when I am running and when I'm how do you know? Because they can look the same. Watching TV is watching TV.
Yeah.
But I'm 44, so I know my rhythms at this point, and I know that was running, not resting.
Yeah. I mean, I think number one, if you can step back and say like, why am I doing this? That's sometimes harder. I mean, I was not a pro at therapy before all this happened, and I would have never been able to answer that question on my couch by myself. But if you can, start there. But if you can't, and that feels really foreign, I would simply say, like, when you're done, how do you feel? Like,
Wow.
do you feel refreshed? Do you feel energized? Do you feel like a little more hope, not even hopeful, but do you just feel a little more energy than when you started this thing, or do you feel drained?
Yes.
And do
great
you want to
question.
hide it?
Yeah. Do you have a hangover or not? Whether
Correct.
it's alcohol or not. Do you have a hangover or not? Yeah.
Because that's the difference.
That's
I mean,
great.
is it pouring in or is it draining out? Like, how do
Yeah.
you feel? And I think part of how we gauge that, right, is staying connected to the people who know us. You know, people say a lot. I think you say this, like, about your counselor and friends. It's like everybody shouldn't know everything, but one person should know everything.
That's right.
And it's like, who are your one or two people? And keep them close, because they'll know and they'll be able to, with grace and compassion, step in and say, like, hey, let's get out of the house. Or like, hey, I want to ask you about how this is going. You know, and they'll know and they'll be able to say. And I think the power of staying connected is, number one, accountability in love with people whose eyes are clearer than yours at this moment.
Okay.
And I think also,
And what do you say to them? Do you say, hey, I'm grieving. Don't let me be stupid? Like, how clear do you
really,
get with them?
the other person. I thought you meant me. I'd probably be like, back off, I'm fine.
Yeah, no.
Wait, don't leave. Except don't leave.
Yeah, that's right. No, when you're the one grieving
Yeah.
and you need to bring someone in that close,
Yeah.
how clear of direction do you give them?
I think it depends on the kind of person you are. You
Yeah.
know, like, I have certain friends that would want me to say, dude, you're wrecking this.
Yeah.
And that's the only way they would hear it.
Yeah.
But I have other friends who I would need to be like, hey, I made extra lasagna. Can I come have some with you? And then
Great.
just ask some questions. You
Great.
know, and I know that's ambiguous and not helpful, but it's just think about the person.
I mean, how often did it help you that people just showed up instead of asking what to do?
No, exactly.
Over and over
Just
when we've
show
talked
up.
about grief, people have said,
just show up.
don't ask us what we want.
Yeah.
I had to send food to some friends who are grieving a couple of days ago. And I was like back and forth on what kind of burritos do they want. And I was like, I'm just doing it. And the wife wrote me back and said, not only was the dinner a gift, the fact I didn't have to decide was a gift.
Oh,
And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. So just I'll make
100%.
choices for you, and you'd rather have a burrito you don't love than decide which burrito you want.
what a freaking gift. I
Okay.
do say that all the time. And like, if you do, this is just a tangible, helpful thing that people did for me. Rather than open-ended questions, what do you want for dinner? If you're going to call, just give an A and B option.
Yes.
You want burritos or Chinese?
Yeah,
That's so helpful.
Yeah.
Like, just decision fatigue is so overwhelming.
yeah. Or just saying,
just as a
I'm
tangible
bringing with
tip.
lasagna. I'm
Yeah.
coming with lasagna, and I'm going to stay for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And let's chat. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's
all you have
really
to do.
helpful.
I think another big thing for me on the connect point, and I'm going to kind of steal this from a woman I interviewed lately, and she has a book that comes out actually this week that this is coming out on joy after her divorce. And she was talking about this philosophy she learned in law school about when it's like a architectural design class. I'm going to botch the entire
No, it's
metaphor,
great.
but
It's
the
great.
idea is you move into a home, your backyard is pretty much barren, and you're trying to create some beauty. You're trying to create some landscape. Your next door neighbor has this gargantuan, mango tree or whatever it
Yeah.
is that's beautiful. If you're trying to create beauty in your yard, which is empty, you don't plant something to block out their tree. You use their tree to inform what little beauty you have. And so
Wow.
her whole point was,
Wow.
when you aren't in a beautiful season, when you're in a winter season, like, borrow somebody else's summer.
Yeah.
Like,
wow.
I mean, truly, this is
Yeah.
the whole, like, I know it's in the devotional. It's one of the entries is from Romans, I think 12:15, which is rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. And it's like, it's hard to rejoice with people in winter,
Yeah.
but you've got to borrow some of their sunshine. And I
Yeah,
don't mean
that's
that
good.
like as trite as it sounds
That's
and
really
silly,
good.
but it's like, when is the most enjoyable beach vacation? Now,
Yeah.
Annie, right now. Like,
Yeah.
let's book it. Let's go to
Yes.
the Panhandle, except I think it just snowed there.
Yeah.
But like the experience of just a few days of warmth when you are in the middle of winter is more life-giving than you realize. And
Wow.
and I want to say that with a caveat of it's really hard. Like, when you don't have something or you've lost something or you're waiting for something and somebody else has it, it's really hard. But there's also joy when you adopt that as your own for a minute, with people that are really kind to share it with you.
Was it also hard? I'm projecting, so tell me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
Was it hard when there were other widows who were further down the healing journey than you? Was it ever hard to be like, man, lucky her, she's 2 years past this, and I'm still here? Did you ever? That can sometimes happen in some of my grief.
Because you just want to be there.
Because everybody,
I think so, but I think if that's a feeling that comes up in whatever your scenario, I think you, again, have the agency to feel that as comparison, like, I'm not there yet, I'll never get there. Or you see it as like, there's proof that I'm not stuck here.
Wow. Right.
And that's you can choose that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's putting on a different pair of glasses.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that's kind of what I mean when, like, that's a small way you can choose hope.
Yeah. Will you talk about the worship part? Why is worship so important when we're in darkness, grief, valley, winter?
The hard answer is that God tells us to.
Yeah.
And Whale was really hard for me because I'm wired happy-go-lucky, like pull yourself up by your bootstraps, etc.
Let's go. Yeah.
Learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
Big fan. Got to start with Whale.
Yeah.
The other one that was hard was worship, because the God that I knew was calling me to still worship him was the God that let me down. And
huge.
You don't feel praise and worshipy, for a long time. And so I think first and foremost, choosing to worship is obedience. And God honors our obedience. And I don't know how to connect you from A to B and how that works. It's just a miracle. When you keep doing that, I think God honors that, and he allows you to start to heal in deeper ways. I don't know if you've I can't.
Yeah.
That's what happened for me.
Yeah.
Because you don't mean it for a while. Can I just say that?
Yes.
You don't. And I couldn't
until your feelings catch up.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's such I think a common conversation now is even just listening to marriage podcasts, stuff like that. It's like, if you want to feel more loving, act more loving. It will catch up. And if you will eventually genuinely feel grateful and safe with and trusting in God again. But you have to sort of act in that before you feel it. And it's really hard.
Wow.
I mean, I wish there was a prettier answer. It's just, you have to. And I also want to say that it doesn't start big, and it doesn't start with singing. It doesn't start with church. It just starts with thank him for something.
Yeah.
Or just at least show up to the word, or like I said before, call someone who can speak the word over you and simply say, I choose to believe this is true.
Yes.
I think that's worship.
I joke sometimes that Alexa pastors me because every morning I say good morning to her, and she plays 3 minutes of the news and then starts a worship song.
Yeah.
So I don't get the choice.
Yeah.
I worship starts in my house because I have set a rhythm. So whether I cried myself to sleep the night before or whether I laughed myself to sleep the night before, my morning starts with a little bit of news and a worship song that I don't pick, that somewhere someone picks. And so it has really changed my experience of worship a little bit, because it has become a morning rhythm, less by choice. I mean, I built the routine. Yeah. I understand. But it is doing it itself.
Yeah.
Right? And I have needed that on days where I wouldn't start it myself. So even to me, just starting a worship, there's a Worship Now Spotify playlist. It's whatever released in the last week. You don't have to know the words.
Yeah.
But even just having there's something in the spiritual that happens too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Will you talk about that a little bit? What's the spiritual? I mean, the whole thing's spiritual, but there's something supernatural, spiritual warfare-y that goes on when you're worshiping through the dark.
Yeah. I think for me, kind of back to the idea of heaven as the kind of big banner H hope. I think worship, even when we don't, quote unquote, mean it or feel it, it reminds us how big God is.
Wow. And
I needed to be reminded of that, And I think more than anything for me, there was this really insatiable desire to know that God's heart was without a doubt good. And I knew that in my head because Scripture says it, and I believe it's true, and I never doubted it on a cognitive theological level. But the way that I was experiencing God in a lot of moments didn't feel good. And so to me, scripture, worship songs, praising him, thanking him for things that I didn't necessarily feel super thankful for,
Right.
reiterated to me in a very palpable way that he was good. And I don't think I can overstate the value of that,
Yes.
because at the end of the day, he always will be good. And, I sign all my books, not this one, I did the Lamentations, His mercies are new every morning, but I signed the other book with Romans 8:28. And I think you
Yes.
asked me about it the last
Yes.
time we talked. And it's like, that's a tough verse, because God doesn't work out everything for good in the way that we want to define good.
Yes.
But he's always good.
Yes.
And so what he will work in us will always be good when we come back to him. And so I think part of worship for me was reminding myself of the truths that I believe but didn't feel. And that's how it brought me back to who he really was, and that his character was good and his heart for me was good, and the outcome in ways would be good.
Yes.
That sounds fun.
Hey, friends, just interrupting this conversation one more time to tell you about one of our incredible partners, Wayfair. Does anybody else do that thing where you start coming up with new things you need for your house in the winter since you're inside more than normal? I'm here in New York right now, and listen, everything around me is Wayfair furniture. I love my Wayfair furniture I have here. It is truly one of my favorite couches out in the living room. But of course, I keep looking around about what other fun things I can change or add. What I love about Wayfair is there's truly something for every style and every home, no matter the size of your space or budget. You get free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff, and they will help you set it up. White glove, you guys. When you're looking on Wayfair, look for the white glove. It is such a genuinely impressive game changer. They helped me set up one piece of furniture here when I first moved in, and I honestly don't think I'd have purchased it if I wouldn't have had help. So give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. And one more incredible partner I get to tell you about, Thrive Cosmetics. Okay, for over 10 years, Thrive Cosmetics has celebrated the strength and beauty of women. But it's not just about makeup. It's a commitment to becoming your best self, to thrive in every moment, and to empower others to do the same. I love that. I absolutely love that Thrive Cosmetics beauty products are certified 100% vegan and cruelty-free. It's all made with clean, skin-loving ingredients, so I can trust what I'm putting on my skin. Y'all know their liquid lash extension mascara is my favorite. You've got to give it a try. I'm wearing it right now. I wear it every day. It just makes your lashes look so long and so full. I'm not wearing fake eyelashes ever, you guys. I don't know how to put them on. This is genuinely Thrive Cosmetics mascara. And for every product purchase, they donate products and funds to help communities thrive, which is awesome. Let's celebrate the strength and beauty of women with Thrive Cosmetics, luxury beauty that gives back. Right now, my friends can get an exclusive 20% off your first order at thrivecosmetics.com/TSF. That sounds fun. That's Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/TSF for 20% off your first order. And now back to finish up our conversation with Mattie.
That sounds fun.
Pastor John Tyson in New York recommended this book on his Instagram called The Four Views of Heaven. So I listened to it. It was very good. It's like a theological, here's these four dudes who've really studied it as part of their like doctorally kind of things, like very smart theologians. And then the guy who's put the book together kind of does a rebuttal on each of them.
Oh, cool.
I would recommend to friends, it might be better to read it than listen to it because it's
like,
the same
I'm already
guy's
lost
voice.
on Audible.
It's the same guy's voice doing both sides of every argument. But one of the things he talks about is what you don't do in heaven that we do on earth.
Oh.
And so, for example, he said, one of the guys said, Jesus said, take communion to remember him until he returns. So we might not take communion on the other side. We will
True.
feast, but we won't have to remember Jesus because we'll be with Jesus, right? Well, one of the other things they talk about is we will not worship through pain
Wow.
because we won't feel pain. And so that is like an earth-only activity that you kind of don't want to miss out on.
Wow.
Because we won't have to do that. We will
That's
just
wild.
worship from knowledge of the goodness of
Yeah.
God and like look at his face from the goodness
Yeah.
of God. But now we get to say,
Yeah.
in the middle of things going worse than I could have imagined,
Yeah.
in the middle of this winter going longer than I thought, in the middle of the waiting I didn't want to do, I'm going to worship because I won't get to do this forever. Isn't that
Wow,
wild to think
that's
about?
crazy.
Yeah, it was a really interesting listen.
Yeah.
It
Sounds like a beach read.
Yeah, totally. Just relaxing. These 4 different theologians arguing over parts about heaven.
That's awesome.
Okay, so you wrote a 365 devotional. My question is, the one question I wrote down, because you and I are friends enough that I was like, we're just going to talk. My question I wrote down is it going to take 365 days? Like, do we get through grief in 365 days? Or will it for sure take us, like, is this a map?
No.
Okay.
I think I hope that it is. I hope that it's not boundaries, but
yeah.
I hope it's just a friend telling you what worked for her.
Wow.
That's genuinely what I hope.
Yeah.
And I think it always takes longer than 365 days.
Yeah.
But I think it was very important to me that I offered that amount of time
Yeah.
for people to trust what I was telling them and see it to be true in their own life.
Yeah.
And I think the different needs that you have over the course of whether it's of your first, fifth, whatever year
Right.
that you're dealing with, whatever you're grieving,
Right.
your needs are different every day, every month, every year. And so I'm hoping that as you go through, you're able to grow, trust back with the Lord. You're able to see the value of these rhythms, wail,
Right.
connect, worship, hope. And that, if it rolls over into year 2 and 3, all of this is scripture. Like the
Yeah,
Lord is
keep
going to
going.
meet you with what you need.
That's
and
right.
so I just hope that it's a safe friend to meet you and point you back to Jesus, because that's what the women that mentored me did for me. And that's what I hope this does for anybody, because that's all you can do.
Yeah. Your
Is
first
say-
book, Lemons on Friday.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So people can go back and read to hear the story
Yeah.
and kind of hear and then this is kind of, okay, if you're grieving, here's the steps out of it. Not out of grieving, but here's the steps out of my experience that led me.
Yeah, it's hard
Yeah.
because it's like it's not a map, it's not a game plan. It's just
Yeah.
sort of like tools. That's what it's like.
Tools. Yeah,
here's the
that's really
tools
good.
that helped me.
Yes.
And when I practiced these things, my days were a little lighter, and God felt closer, and I felt more hopeful. And so if you can learn them, and really integrate them into your life, to be honest, Annie, I feel myself in the last many years being like, I need to practice these 4 things in tiny ways most
All the
days.
time. Yeah, that's good.
And
That's really
and when I
good.
don't, you can kind of feel it. Like
Yeah.
it's that kind of baggage starts
Yep.
to build up, and I got to sit down and be like, which one of these am I not doing? And
Yeah,
so it's
wow.
really, I think you build those muscles, for life, and they're really helpful tools.
So for any of our friends listening who are kind of like where they're like, this is as dark as it gets, will you talk for a second about your 6-week course? Because I wonder if that's kind
Yeah.
of, some people are wishing they could jump into something not alone.
Yeah, that's very important to me. After releasing this, really before releasing this, when I finished editing this, I really had on my heart, like, this is a big book. Like, it's a daily devotion, so it is only 5 minutes if you really want to read it. But a lot of people can't. You
Yeah.
just can't, because you are on that darkest day. And so I came back to just what I said to you a minute ago. I had women, thank God, just by network of people I know in Nashville, who we would get coffee or lunch, every so often, or they would call, and they really walked every step with me. And it wasn't just the devotional part. Like it was here's Jesus, here's scripture, here's truth.
Yeah.
But it was also the things that I couldn't even ask my kindest, most loving people about, because they hadn't been in my shoes.
Yeah.
They were the questions that were embarrassing, or the things that were shameful, or the stuff that I didn't even know how to articulate. And so to have them sit across from me and be like, girl, I did that worse than you. And here's the prayer, and here's some practical things that you
Mattie.
can do
Yeah.
to sort of shoulder that weight.
Yes.
I just wanted people to have that too. And I think a lot of people are so interpersonal that they may glean a lot more from having somebody even on the other side of the screen, you know, than reading it in a book. And so all that to say, you know, it certainly speaks to a lot of the same ideas in the book. It follows a rhythm-based sort of structure too. It's 6, so there's 2 additional ones that we start with to really like kind of get your heart posture in the right place.
Stuff,
And each one of them actually follows one of the 6 verses in the 23rd Psalm, which is pretty cool.
Beautiful. We love the 23rd
Didn't mean
Psalm
to do
around
that.
here.
That was the Lord.
Gosh.
He was like, "Hey, let's add another complicated level to explain to people."
I love
It's so cool. So anyway, that is on my website, and it is simply 8 to 10 minutes a day for 6 weeks, 7 days a week. I mean, it's a lot of content, but it's 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And so I just hope people are met in it and can hear and see, you know, on my face the difference that these rhythms made in my life and why. And it's always because God shows us that they work. Jesus walks them out, you know, so we know that they work. And so, that means a lot to me. And I hope it can be a safe space for people who maybe need something, you know, more interpersonal, more concrete, more immediate. And it's also called Through the Valley of Grief, but it's on my website.
Beautiful. For just a second, let's finish up here. Will you talk about, this is a little bit of a loaded question because I feel it about talking about singleness of like, why is this what God asked me to do? And not every day, but there are days, a lot of days I'm so thankful that God is using my life and my pain and my figuring it out so that people feel like someone has gone before them. I love it. Some days I don't.
Yeah.
There are a lot of our friends listening who feel invited by God to talk about something in their life that they do not want to talk about. They do not want that to be the thing that they're known for. Their spouse had an affair. They've lost a child. Their prayers have not been answered. They've lost a spouse. They went bankrupt. Their thing that they think, this is the thing I don't want to talk about. They feel the like gut feeling that maybe God would have them share about it. How do you say yes to that? How'd you say yes to making grief the thing you talk about for the last few years?
Initially, to be honest, it was really just this eating desire for purpose, for it to matter. That was always my prayer at the beginning. And it wasn't like a polite prayer. It was a pretty indignant prayer.
You better make this.
That's exactly it.
I
but
bet,
it was
girl.
like, the words
that.
were mostly like, I'm not doing this if it doesn't matter.
Wow.
And so I'm not proud of the tone, but I am being
but
honest.
Welcome to a real relationship with God who can handle our tones.
Yes. And the truth is, like, that prayer, he wants to answer. He is, you know, the bringer of beauty from ashes. Like, he is a redeemer God, which means when we break, he restores us. And when, you know, Lazarus dies, he calls you out so that people will see his glory and goodness. And so I will say there is purpose in whatever you're in that God's keyed up and ready for, if you will take the step. And then the very non-holy, selfish answer is, when you do that, it heals you. Like,
That's right.
It does. I mean, I hope you feel that with your book that's coming out. And it doesn't ease your experience by any means. But there is a depth of trust again with God and a depth of richness to life, I think.
Yes.
That is unbelievable. And I think you miss that if you try to move forward without allowing God to make beauty from those ashes. It's just amazing. Like, and also obviously you help other people, which is the most incredible feeling and call as a Christian, is to just steward what God gives you to help others. But I mean, holy answer, you want to meet God more than you've ever met him before, do it. You want purpose like you've never experienced, give it over to him. And selfishly, you want to heal. Man, what he does in your heart when you obediently share what hurts is wild.
It's wild. It is the, with the Where Did TJ Go with Single Purpose League, both things have felt like they've been the two examples of that for me as of late and really ever probably. And it is the absolute, there is an entire tree inside an apple seed.
Yes.
where you go like, you have got the seed of a story, and there is a world where God wants to turn that into an apple tree that brings shade and fruit and so many more seeds. You just have to let it be planted. And also you're allowed to say no.
Yeah.
You're allowed to say no.
Totally.
I think there will be things I have said no to and things I will say no to.
Yeah.
Like, that's the best part about partnership with God is it's
Yeah.
never forced on us. It is like,
For sure.
okay, you don't have to do this, but
Yeah.
if you would,
Yeah.
I'll turn this apple seed into an apple tree.
Yeah.
Also, he's not going to make you,
Yeah.
which made me want to do things more.
Yeah.
When I didn't feel forced, right?
Yeah. And I think it's important to say too, I mean, this should be obvious, but that doesn't mean you're on a podcast and you write a book,
That's
like
right.
you and I are doing.
That's right.
And it doesn't mean you even start a group for people who
right.
are divorced.
That's right.
It may simply mean that one time in your whole life at your work or at your kids' daycare or whatever, the Lord puts someone in front of you and does that annoying prick in your heart.
Yes.
And you just say, hey, how are you? I'm Mattie. And then 10 weeks down the line, they're in the middle of a divorce and you have one conversation and you buy them a coffee.
That's it,
and that
Mattie.
could be it.
That's it.
And that is insane purpose
that
that
is
matters.
an apple tree. Yeah, that's right.
That's amazing.
I have a friend who went through an affair in her family. And it is amazing how her phone will ring. And she hasn't, I mean, people know because we all live in towns, but her phone will ring and it'll just be someone who said, I just found out yesterday, what do I do? And so no one, she's never going to sit where you're sitting and talk about it.
Yeah.
She isn't a public person at all.
Yeah.
But in her small town, she gets phone calls where she gets to go, okay,
Yeah.
I come over
Yeah.
or I can come to you.
Yeah.
And we can do, and I bet she has, I mean, the multiplication of her pain
Yeah.
has served so many people.
Yeah.
And no one will ever know. It is
Yeah.
just private in your life. So that is a really good thing to say, Mattie, is that
Yeah.
it does not have to be public.
Yeah. Because you know what God's doing? Meeting those people in her living room.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And I mean, for you and me, there are ways that these exact same stories are meeting people in living rooms, and we aren't talking about those parts publicly.
Yeah.
There are people who call
Totally.
you and people who call me that it's not public at all. And so it's beautiful to remind everybody listening that it doesn't have to be a published book in the end. You can write a book if you want to.
Yeah,
It doesn't have
wonderful.
to be a published book in the end.
Yeah.
It's a yes to the opportunity God might put in front of you to let your story matter
Yeah.
in other people's lives.
Yeah.
Your story has mattered greatly in my life. So thank you for sharing it. I just love you. Every time I see you, I'm just so happy. So thank you. Thanks for doing this.
I'm so grateful to be here, and I'm really excited. I'm excited for winter. No,
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm excited that we get to talk about winter.
Yeah.
because it's a time when I think people least want to talk about, and it's a time that forms us the most, whether we
Yes.
like it or not.
I may have said this to you when your book came across my desk. I think I messaged you and said to you, would you mind us? Didn't I? Didn't I message you?
I don't remember.
We very quickly said, we know exactly when we want to talk about this book.
Yeah.
If that's okay with Mattie, we'll do it in the winter. So, okay, well, for sure, Mattie, while you're here, we got to talk about, because the show is called That Sounds Fun, there's no way we hit stop on the recording, and I then had to make you answer this on a second recording because I forgot. Because the show is called That Sounds Fun, Mattie, tell me what you do for fun. What sounds fun to you?
You know what really sounds fun to me, as lame as this sounds?
Don't judge your fun.
No judge. I would love to read a novel, like front to back.
New mom props.
No, seriously. That's what I feel like. I, like you, I think read so much nonfiction and
Yes,
spiritual
that's right.
books and all that kind of stuff, which is wonderful. But I just told you before we started, I went on the first girl trip last month or last
Yes.
week since my son was born.
Yes.
And I took my mom's Kindle and I finished the second half of a novel that I started like 9 months ago.
Oh my
maybe.
gosh.
And I felt like I've got to do this
Yes,
sometimes.
yes.
Like, just speaking of winter, like
Yes.
get a coffee, sit by the fire. Like, I would love to just get lost in a world like that for 1 week.
Yes,
You
me and
know?
my CO Ashley were talking about this yesterday because we both read so much for work.
Yeah.
We read books, we read our computer screens, whatever, that like reading is still enjoyable, but I can't do like 3 hours of
Yeah,
it like I used to be able to do after I taught a day of school. I could come home and sit and read, but
Yeah.
now it's like, no, I read a book today. So
Yeah.
I already read a book
Yeah,
today at
I'm
work,
done.
so I cannot read.
I'm out.
Have you seen, I see this on Insta stories or on Reels, and I'm dying to do it. These retreats women do
No.
where they just read.
No.
Yes, we're like 5 friends, get a house in Gatlinburg,
Oh,
and you
that's
read in the
fun.
morning, you do breakfast, you read in the morning, you do lunch, you read in the afternoon, you do dinner.
That's awesome.
Can you imagine?
I mean, so rested.
What a dream.
Yeah.
And then like so often on the Reels, they'll be like, how many books did you read? And they're like 2.5.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh,
That's
that
crazy.
that sounds awesome.
Yeah, that sounds fun to me.
Yeah.
I see a lot of my other much further down the line moms doing that, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know if I could get into it. But then I did my little half this weekend, and I was like, I think this would be fun. I don't think it's a
like to
lifestyle.
read
I don't
again.
think it's a lifestyle thing for me. I think it's like, a chocolate covered sundae, like it's
Yeah.
a treat.
Yeah.
But it sounds fun.
Okay, I agree with you. I hope you get to read soon and
If
very
I ever
soon.
read a novel, I'll send it on to you.
Yeah, please do.
So.
Oh, you guys, isn't she amazing? I'm telling you, this devotional, this is the one that you need. If you are currently walking through grief, have a friend walking through grief, if this could serve you at all, you need to get you a copy of Through the Valley of Grief, wherever you love to buy books. Make sure you're following Mattie on social media. Tell her thank you again for being on the show. And I, again, encourage you to grab this devotional. I think it could really help, and we've linked it in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, you should go back and hear Mattie's whole story when she was on with us last time. That's episode 345, or I think you'll also enjoy episode 477 with Granger Smith. If you have any questions from this episode, drop them in the Q&A box on your Spotify app if you're a Spotify listener like me, or send them to us on Instagram at That Sounds Fun Podcast, and we will try to answer them there. If you need anything else from me, you know I'm embarrassingly easy to find. Annie F. Downs on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, anywhere you need me. That is where you can find me. And I think that's it for me today, friends. Go out or stay home. Do something that sounds fun to you, and I will do the same. Today, what sounds fun to me, I mean, it is cold up here in New York, but I love being outside. So I'm going to go on a walk outside today. Y'all have a great week. We'll actually see you back here on Thursday as I keep talking with our pal, Eddie Kaufholz. We'll see y'all then.
That sounds fun.
That sounds fun.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Check 1, 2 on the microphone. NEF down in your car to your home. Every week it's something new. A deep talk or an interview. She'll make you laugh, she'll make you cry. When it's dark out, she's a light. When you're down, get you feeling right. Oh man, that sounds fun.
That sounds fun.
That sounds fun.
Oh.